Welcome to Beyond the Policy, the podcast where we go past the fine print and into the real stories that shape how we live, work, and protect what matters most. I'm Matt Karaffa, risk advisor, consultant, and founder of the Be Better Foundation, where each week sit down with clients, colleagues, and industry voices to talk about business, life, and the passions that drive each of us and the areas we can all work on to truly be better. This is Beyond the Policy. Welcome to Beyond the Policy. Excited to dig into our conversation. We have Nick Huckaby joining us. So, Nick, thanks for taking the time to come down and have a conversation. And before we get started, just tell people what you're up to, how you got there, and what you're doing these days.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, Matt. So Nick Huckaby, I'm a corporate attorney, Shoemaker, Loop & Kendrick in Toledo. I work various different clients, manufacturing, transportation, general businesses. Shoemaker, full-service law firm. We do everything, labor and employment, corporate, litigation, employee benefits, you name it.
Yeah.
We represent everybody from Fortune 500 companies to closely held corps to individuals to single-member LLCs, stay on the commercial side of stuff. And yeah, I've been there for 8 years, just made partner there.
Congratulations.
Very excited about that. It's been a long road. And, I can't speak highly enough about the organization. Shoemaker's great. There's experts around every corner. So that makes my job a lot easier in advising clients. If something comes up that I've not seen before or it's not my area of expertise, I can walk down the hall and find somebody. If I can't walk down the hall and find somebody, we have 8 offices, so I can call somebody in our Florida office, Carolina's office, and we can find answers for people.
Yeah, that's awesome. And we'll get into some of those details, what you do on the day-to-day basis, but kind of one thing, through our conversations over the last couple years, share an athletic background, play college baseball, so maybe a little bit about your history, where you grew up, how you got, maybe a quick snippet on your college recruiting process and what that experience was like for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in Jamestown, Kentucky, a literal one-stop light town. If you've heard of Lake Cumberland, it's right on Lake Cumberland. Wouldn't trade growing up there for anything, but I didn't know any different growing up there.
Right.
It's a great small town. I always tell people, you go to the middle of nowhere, you take a right, you drive for about an hour, and then you'll get there. So grew up there. It was hard to get recruited for colleges. I had good grades, good ACT. I had a great high school baseball coach and a great high school football coach that really preached academics will get you, as far as anything. So I had good grades, good ACT, and recruiting process was tough. This is the early to mid 2000s. I was writing handwritten letters to colleges just to, hey, come watch me play. I promise I can play. Had some small college offers for football, didn't want to do that. Had some offers for baseball. One Division I offer from Belmont University. It's an expensive school. Went down there and visited. They offered me money, and my dad walked out, and he said, "Brother, it's not going to be enough." And I was like, "I get it, Dad." They were going to help me out a little bit along the way, so I had to take his advice. Ended up at a Division II school, Alabama Huntsville. You want to play baseball? I always think going south makes sense.
Yep.
It's warmer. And so ended up in Huntsville, played for 4 years, had a great college career, got postseason awards individually for 3 of my 4 years. I always tell people I was a really good Division II baseball player and nothing more. So I look awesome on a slow pitch softball field, but I never played any pro or anything like that. But it was, baseball was my first love. And I learned so many lessons from it, and it's been a big part in who I am today.
Yeah. One thing always sticks out. I'm sure you had coaches, you mentioned multi-sports athlete along the way, things that, stick with you throughout. You mentioned a high school coach to help you get there. I'm sure you had multiple college coaches along the way. Anything that sticks out from them, whether it be work ethic, goal setting, anything that kind of translates to your professional career now?
Yeah, one thing that really sticks out in my head, I played a lot as a freshman. I ended up starting for us as a freshman, and I won Freshman of the Year in our conference, which is a good baseball conference. I had a really good year. And I was going to play summer ball in the Valley League in Northern Virginia in the Shenandoah Valley. And my coach pulled me aside before I left for the summer. He said, Nick, you've had a great year. You're really good. But you're going to play with guys from Louisville and Miami of Florida. And they can hit a dribbler back to the pitcher and jog down the first baseline. You can't. And it was a reminder that what made me good was effort. And what made me stand out against other guys was playing as hard as possible. Because I didn't have the most talent in the world, unfortunately. And so that always stuck out to me, and that was from my college coach, who I still talk to today. And he never let me off the hook with a thing, you know, and I appreciate I didn't like him a lot when I was a 19-year-old, but I appreciate it a ton today.
Right. You think about that in multiple facets, whether it be mentorship, coaching, obviously, very much that will stick with you throughout. And you never know in the moment what you're going to remember 10 years down the road, but it's always those things that make you think or, you know, reminding you, maybe not at the time, you're like, yeah, shut up, dude.
Right.
I don't want to listen. But looking back, how many times do you remind them of thanks for saying that, or, you know, all those lessons you are taught along the way?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's one of those conversations that I can remember. I can remember the color of the carpet. You know what I'm saying? It was just like, because at the time I was like, dude, I just hit 340 as a freshman. I played 7 positions for you. What are you talking about? But as soon as I got there and I saw the level, you know, I was playing with first-round draft picks, and I was like, oh, I see what you're, you know, it made more sense. And as life goes on, it's made even more and more sense.
Yeah. You mentioned playing with some Division I. Any notable guys that maybe we have seen on TV or in the big leagues that you played against, or any matchups that stick out?
No guys that you've heard of. I played against quite a few guys that got more than a cup of coffee in the big leagues. Some Nathan Adcock, a couple others. It was funny. I got to a Cincinnati Reds game one time, and a guy came in to pitch, and I poked my wife. I said, "Guess what my career lifetime is off this guy?" She said, "I don't know." I said, 1 for 1, because I hit him in high school.
That's all it takes.
I got one hit off of him. Only faced him once, thankfully. So,
yeah.
No big notable guys. Some first-round draft picks. Some guys, like I said, had 2 or 3 year careers, but no big-time guys.
Yeah, and we'll touch on more of what that led to athletically and what you're up to now, but fast forward a few years, you know, law school, how you got to Northwest Ohio, kind of what that journey was like going from Alabama, Huntsville to where you are now.
Yeah, absolutely. So graduate college, took 5.5 years. I majored in baseball for a few of them. So it took me a little longer. I had some growing up to do, without a doubt, and got a degree in history, went and coached high school baseball in East Tennessee, was a high school economics coach, did that for 3 years. Teaching remains one of the toughest things I've ever done in my life. It's a very thankless job. It's very tough. I appreciate all the teachers out there. We need you. Keep being tough, people, because we need that. I wasn't tough enough to do it, so I found something easier, and I ducked into law school. And so my wife is a physician. That brought us to Northwest Ohio in her residency, went to Toledo Law. Like I said, I wasn't a bad student in undergrad, you know, but I wasn't the best student. But having the ability to be 26 years old going into law school as opposed to 22 or 23 gave me a huge leg up. So I had already had that full-time job. I knew what that looked like. I treated law school like that.
Like a job.
And that gave me a huge leg up. So after my first year, we get our grades back, and I look, and I'm ranked first in our class. And I was like, well, there's going to be some people surprised by this, and those included my family. But I just, you know, outworked people for the most part, got very lucky, just had taken a deep interest in reading and writing through my history degree, and that just translated so well to law school. And I worked extremely hard for 3 years there, and ended up being valedictorian of our class, which I'm very thankful for, and I can't thank, you know, my family and support system enough for getting me through that, because it was not me alone.
Yeah. So, kind of got the law school, and then did you have experience with the current law firm, or how did you find a home, you know, upon getting your degree?
Yeah, so graduate first lawyer in my family, don't come from a family of lawyers by any means. Didn't really know what I wanted to do, where to go. I got a summer internship with Shoemaker, so they bring in people going into their third year of law school for internships. Got to Shoemaker, was able to see a lot of different types of law and got certain interests. And then they offered me a job after that summer, and I started there in September of 2017. Started there in our litigation department, actually. Did that for 2 or 3 years. Litigation, going through the court system, lawsuits was a great training ground for me. Had some conversations with people at the firm in 2019. Transitioned to the transactional side, so now I've been in the corporate department for quite a few years. And I think my background in litigation gives me a little different thought process on the corporate side as far as risk strategies and how we manage risk, because I know what the other side of that risk looks like, and it's not a lot of fun for anybody on the litigation side. It has to happen sometimes, but if we can prevent getting there, it's really important.
Yeah, perfect segue. That was going to be, kind of into the corporate side now. Obviously, myself being in the risk management space, when you're doing it on the contractual side, a lot of mergers and acquisitions, I would do some contract review. Not to get into your checklist or, how you go about doing that, but what are some common things you see, in the last 8 years looking at deals? Obviously, COVID's probably changed a lot, but just kind of an overview in the corporate space when you're putting those deals together, what sticks out?
Yeah, so I think I divide it up into a couple different realms. One is the supply contract side, we'll say, where we're the distributor or we are the supplier, or we're on the other side, we're the service provider, etc. Reviewing those contracts, it's really important to assess risk. So what do we look at? Main things, thinking indemnification clause, limitation of liabilities. Insurance is big. Who has insurance? Do both parties have insurance? What types of insurance is really important. Main thing we've seen in the last 5 to 6 years, creating a cyber policy and having that cyber policy in place is very important. Talk with clients all the time. Data breaches, that's a big risk for everybody, and we're talking about big money a lot of times, whether it's a simple wire transaction that's 6 figures or whether it's personal information. So looking in those supply service agreements, figuring out what is our insurance, what is the policy amount that we're supposed to have, are we an additional insured on the other side's policy, are all important things. On the merger acquisition side, it's not much different, it's just a little more in depth. So we've got to understand the other side. If we're buying, what are we taking on? Is it an asset purchase? Is it a stock purchase? And what does that mean as far as the assets? And importantly, the liabilities that we're taking on as we're going forward.
Sure. And, through that investigating and looking at all those documents, is your relationship and communication with the client and their legal team directly most of the case, or is it, you and your team reporting through someone else, or how does that, because I just talk about, if we think about it from a customer perspective or your client perspective, just trying to get a little more insight on what that communication is back and forth when you review and assess, how's that communication back to the client look like?
Yeah, I think it depends on the client. Like I said, we represent some Fortune 500 companies that have full legal departments. Generally, that's through their legal department in some form or fashion. Sometimes that can also include their deal team, whether that's procurement, investments, whatever team that they have. But, some of the closely held companies, corporations, I'm dealing with the CEO, right? In some companies, I'm dealing with the only employee of the company.
Yeah.
And so I think it just depends on the company, how that communication gets done.
Yeah. And that makes a lot of sense with the multiple types of deals you could be doing. Every deal is going to be different. It's going to have its own nuances. If you would, you mentioned cyber being one, kind of checking that box, kind of been overlooked by some businesses. Anything that sticks out when you're reviewing deals, or from a client's thing, from a kind of business outlook that you're seeing trending up, or maybe that 3-4 years ago wasn't existent, now it's very prevalent? Anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. Import-export control. So talking of manufacturing, even if we're equipment sales and we're getting stuff from overseas, 4 years ago, the import-export tariff stuff was kind of an afterthought. As of 2 years ago, I started doing some, hey, here are 60 of our contracts. How do the import-export tariff issues that are coming up affect our business? And I'm making spreadsheets for clients to say, this is where we are on the next go around. When we renegotiate this contract, this is what we would prefer. That's been obviously a big part in the last, of course, with this presidential administration with the tariff interests.
Yeah. You made me think of something in your comment there. In our industry, service, it's essentially a form of a contract. We hear AI all over the place. How it's going to impact our industry, is it going to tweak it, and what's that going to look like? Curious from your side, attorney, contract review, that how, if you've utilized it, how's that look, or where do you see in 2 to 3 years down the road any major changes coming, as it pertains to AI?
Yeah, I think it is being used. It's being used in a confidential manner through closed source companies, and I think that's one place that we can provide value is having some of those resources as a firm that a lot of smaller firms don't have. From more of a legal standpoint, I deal a lot in non-disclosure agreements, confidentiality agreements. So I'm starting to see clauses in those disclosure agreements, and including the ones that we provide to clients, that provide you cannot give confidential information to open source AI platforms. Because if you put our confidential information into ChatGPT, for example, which is open source, that is breaching confidentiality. So that's a really important thing that we've incorporated into non-disclosure agreements for our clients, and we're seeing from the other side get launched back at us a little bit.
Yeah. Do you think that'll be law firm by law firm assessed, or do you think it'll be kind of industry wide, because it's impacting so many different avenues that, it's going to be hard to manage? You're seeing it, more and more with contracts come up, but I think there's a lot unknowns that could still come.
There's a lot of unknowns. And even if, let's say, your confidential information gets uploaded into open source, how do we know? And what damages occur from that? That's one question that you can always bring up. But at the same time, why don't we just put a clause in our non-disclosure agreement that you can't upload our confidential information into open source that breaches that confidentiality? And then you shouldn't do it. If we find out about it, we'll have a recourse.
Yeah. Thanks for providing that insight. I think that'll be something we can keep in touch on it, because I think it's going to be ever changing as time goes on. So we sit here in a month from now, we might have a different conversation with something that come up. So
absolutely, we're guessing at it. It's going to look different in 5 years and probably 10 years. We're at the forefront of it, and so kind of from a more day-to-day thing, I think using it as a starting point can be helpful in a lot of ways. It's not replacing lawyers. It's not replacing insurance agents, not yet, anyways. And but I think it can be a tool for efficiency for almost every profession. Yeah,
for sure. And I think that's a good thing of a lot of it is, it's going to replace this. It will if you don't adapt with it and grow with it and just get complacent. I think it can be a tool and not so much replace altogether. So.
I agree. And I think the value that we provide as lawyers and what you provide in your area of expertise is a deep knowledge of the client and what the client needs. And you have some of that institutional knowledge that we can't just plug in a spreadsheet and throw it in AI. That kind of interpersonal knowledge is going to be really hard to recreate in an artificial intelligence sense. So I think that's some of the value that we provide, and you get to learn a client. Honestly, that's one of the things that are most fun in my realm is I just get to dig into a client's business and figure out what makes them tick. and that mic and procurement's really important. So we got to figure out a way to keep him in. That's a ton of fun, and I think that's something that AI isn't replacing in the next decade. I won't make any. I won't make any more challenges beyond that.
Yeah. Your comment there, what makes them tick? We've talked a lot about, by the time this gets aired, you will have completed a half marathon you're training on, and whether that's corporate in your day-to-day job or at home in your personal life. Maybe talk a little bit, the triathlons, the marathons, kind of what's keeping your time and energy now, how you got into that, what you like about it, just kind of overall view of not a lot of people out there, signing up for multiple triathlons. So maybe walk us through that a little bit.
Yeah, so coming out of college baseball, I didn't have kind of something to do. Being a college basketball player, you can play a little pickup.
Yeah, you're not going picking up baseball games.
No, I'm not. I don't. If I saw 84 miles an hour right now, I would not know what to do with it. So I needed kind of that outlet. My wife was like, hey, we should run, and I hated it so much. I mean, it's a punishment for team sport guys forever, right? And then I don't know what it was. Sometime in my late 20s, I got into triathlon. I thought something about like the swimming and biking broke up the monotony of running. Done a bunch of triathlons, all distances from sprint to full Ironmans. And then in the last few years, I've really gotten back into just running. And it's really interesting to me. It's meditative. I've never been good at meditating. I've never given it enough practice, to be quite frank with you. But something about going out on a run in the morning before the world wakes up, it's meditative. Being outside is awesome. So, I run all distances, run 5Ks. I ran a 100-miler earlier this year. There's just something about running that's such a challenge to me, that I get to put myself up against my prior self. That is a great competition for me. And so, I'm going out to run a half marathon. Let's lay down a time this next weekend that future Nick is going to have a really hard time touching. And that's just a ton of fun for me. I'm not a runner. I'm not a cross-country runner. Those guys, they dust me, right? But I compete against myself each time. And that is a lot of fun. And I get to lay down a time that, let me see if I can go figure it out next time and get a better time. Or I do distances. Like I said, I've done a 100-miler. I'm signed up for a 100K in April. That makes me uncomfortable. Thinking about that makes me uncomfortable. But that's the fun of it too, is, sign up for something that makes you think, oh man, that's going to be
tough,
brutal. Yeah, let's swim out into deep, dark waters and figure out what I'm made of a little bit. And I still got that, I don't know what it is, I've still got that interest in me that I've got to just kind of figure out what I'm made of and test myself every once in a while.
Yeah, and that brings up, I'm not a fan of the phrase work-life balance. Just, I don't know, everyone can have their own take on it. You mentioned a couple things, partner in a law firm, family, training.
Yep.
On those days when you got, on your training program, you got to go do 15 miles that day and it's cold and it's rainy, whatever, fill in the blank, that's not ideal. Why do you think you're able to just put one foot in front of the other and go and do it? Is it just simply self-motivation? Or what would you attribute that ability to go out and do the 100-mile fill in the blank of all the things you've done and will continue to do that others, I'm good?
Yeah, just priority. A lot of people say I don't have time. I have time to run because I prioritize it. I don't have time to play pickup basketball because it's not my thing. You know what I mean? And if you invited me to play pickup basketball at 8 o'clock on a weeknight, no, man, what? No, absolutely not. So prioritizing it, and in today's world, there's just so many distractions. And I always, when we get a new associate and they get a little flustered at our firm, I always just say, hey, if we just put everything out, if we just lay everything out on the table, there's 3 things in your life probably that matter, right? It's some form of family. If you have kids, it's kids. If you have pets, it's pets. And so mine's family, my dogs, and health. And so if health is my top 3, I've got to do it, right? So it's cold, maybe it's icy. Well, I'll wear trail shoes and we'll figure it out. You know what I mean? But I have to prioritize that because it does mean something to me. And so I don't think everybody does the same 24 hours, right? It's just what you prioritize. And the second thing that I'll say about it, maybe more than second, I've been talking for a while. I just saw a study, though, that talked about elite athletes. And there was a reporter that followed elite swimmers and trying to figure out what makes somebody an elite swimmer that goes to the Olympics. Is it they just swim more miles? Is it that they are just uncannily gifted? And what the conclusion was, the swimmers that end up being the Olympic swimmers, the Michael Phelps, right, the Katie Ledeckis, they just really like swimming. So when they show up at 5 a.m. at a pool, they're not hem-hawing around. They get in the pool and they swim for 2 hours because they just like it. And I guess that's where I am with running. Not an Olympian by any means. But I really like it. I just enjoy it. And when I don't do it, I'm not as good at my job. I'm not as good of maybe a person. I get a little grumpy. So, and I know that about myself now. So I really like it. And I think to get really good at something, practice of law, I just love the problem solving, and I love getting someone else's problem and looking at it, through the prism and figuring out how do we get to the other side and fix this problem for you in a way that everybody's happy with. So it just comes down to prioritizing and enjoyment. Yeah.
So curious, you're going to have some long hours training. Out of my own curiosity, you music, you podcast, you listen to a book. What do you listen to? Or are you just nothing? Yeah, no, I'm not a nothing guy. I'm not that. A psychopath. Yeah. I'm ill, but not in that way. Mostly podcasts. Hard sessions turn into music very fast, though. Yeah. So I really enjoy podcasts. Anything from sports podcasts to running podcasts to your general fare of self-help stuff. And then music. I have a couple different playlists. Is this playlist just getting me 8 miles through an easy morning, or is this playlist getting me a 10-mile really, really, really hard treadmill session on a Wednesday at 5 a.m.? I would imagine with that many hours and little music for everything, any specific genre, or is it all over the board? Most people would think no specific genre. It's a little more chill, though, than I think most people would think. It's not death metal. It's not rap. It's a lot of Tyler Childers and Jason Isbell and Turnpike Troubadours. It's kind of more chill, but I don't know. I'm not trying to get my heart rate up through music. I'm just trying to get the gears going. Yeah. And then, again, curiosity, podcast, your go-tos, what's top 3 or your 3 hosts that you would listen to the most, would you say? Yeah, I listen to Pardon My Take. It's a Barstool podcast. Sports can turn the brain off. I listen to Matt and Shane's Secret Podcasts. Matt McCusker and Shane Gillis, once again, turn the brain off. And then I listen to a couple of different running podcasts. One is Some Work, All Play. A couple ultra runners that talk about science in sport or training, that type of stuff. And it's really interesting to me. I pick up tidbits here and there on it, and it's interesting to me. I listen to some Cam Hanes stuff. I listen to Joe Rogan when he has, I don't listen to every Joe Rogan, but when he has a really interesting musician or comedian or writer on that I like, I'll give that a listen. Huberman Lab, I think is interesting most of the time. Rich Roll's podcast I find really, really interesting too. So those are some that I would say those first 3 are ones that I hit most weeks, and then the other ones are, I see when it on YouTube. Interest. Yeah, and I'm interested in it. Yeah. A lot of good insight there. As we wrap up here, a couple questions to wrap things up. Any personal motto you live by, you say over and over on your runs of, a takeaway? If I were to summarize our conversation here, would be prioritize, would boil it down. But anything more than that, when it comes to you of what your motto is to get you through?
I wouldn't say I have a mantra per se. One thing that I tell myself in longer races, and it's kind of a famous saying in the ultra running community, it doesn't always get worse. Because you find yourself in races sometimes, you're 2 hours in and you're like, man, I'm feeling tough in my leg and this and that. But if you remind yourself, it doesn't always get worse. That is a true statement. And sometimes it gets worse, but it doesn't always. And I think that always allows you to kind of go a little harder and go a little further than you usually think. And I think that's something that has come across to me in life too, beyond running, is, sometimes you have a tough week and, you think, man, it's never going to get better. But we know that's not true. We've lived long enough and we've seen the trials and tribulations that we know that's not true now. And so it doesn't always get worse.
I like that.
Yeah.
And last one, with the internet and not knowing who will ever see this, but if someone's out there, whether it be baseball, whether it be the law path someone's related to, and they're thinking about going to law school or doing, going to college, any advice you would give to your, 17, 18-year-old self that today?
Yeah, don't be afraid to be uncomfortable. And use discretion with that. Don't make stupid decisions. Don't intentionally put yourself in bad spots. But when you're thinking of doing something that's going to further your life, further your career, there's going to be some uncomfort in that transition. And just don't be afraid of that.
Perfect. I think that wraps up our conversation. Thanks again for the time.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in to Beyond the Policy, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for hanging out with me on Beyond the Policy. If you got something out of today's conversation, pass it along to a friend, client, or colleague who might enjoy it too. You can always connect with me through the show notes or on LinkedIn. And remember, the best coverage always starts with the right conversations. Until next time, be better.